The television landscape has been forever altered by revelations that defy comprehension. Mike Wolfe, once the trusted face of artifact hunting, has entered a guilty plea during sealed court proceedings following the suspicious death of Frank Fritz. But it wasn't Wolfe's confession that sent shockwaves through the industry. It was the court's inexplicable decision to commute what should have been the harshest sentence possible. The question haunting viewers nationwide: what did Wolfe reveal in that courtroom that left even hardened prosecutors visibly shaken? More disturbing still is surveillance footage uncovered by investigators. A seemingly ordinary handshake between Wolfe and Rick Harrison captured just 72 hours before Fritz's body was discovered. This fleeting moment, initially dismissed as inconsequential, now stands at the center of an investigation that threatens to unravel the entire foundation of reality television. Is this merely the visible portion of a conspiracy reaching into the highest echelons of entertainment? Has the public been unwittingly consuming programming created by individuals harboring deadly secrets? If you sense something fundamentally wrong with this situation, you're not alone. "I accept full responsibility for my actions," Wolfe stated, his voice steady despite the cameras documenting his downfall. "But I absolutely refuse, to be the only one held accountable while others continue operating in shadows." Those words marked the beginning of testimony that stretched beyond 4 hours. Testimony that systematically dismantled the official narrative surrounding Fritz's death. Medical examiners had attributed it to complications from his existing health conditions, but Wolfe presented evidence suggesting something far more calculated. 3 nights before Frank died, Wolfe testified, leaning forward with intensity that silenced the courtroom, "I received a call at precisely 11:23 p.m. The voice was digitally altered, but the message couldn't have been clearer. Frank is excavating something that should remain buried. Unless he stops immediately, there will be consequences even you can't protect him from." That warning prompted Wolfe to place Fritz under discreet surveillance, leading to a discovery that continues haunting him. Fritz meeting Harrison alone in an abandoned industrial facility on the outskirts of town, with no witnesses and no recording devices permitted. Using specialized equipment concealed in his vehicle, Wolfe captured what would become the most damning evidence in the case. Harrison's voice unmistakable despite the recording's quality. "These artifacts stay buried, both figuratively and literally if necessary. Your conscience isn't worth your life, Frank. People disappear every day without anyone asking questions." Fritz's response revealed a man who understood the danger but refused to back down. "I've documented everything, Rick. If anything happens to me, the entire operation gets exposed. Every transaction, every under-the-table deal, every illegally exported historical artifact, all of it becomes public." The meeting ended with palpable hostility. Exactly 48 hours later, Fritz was found unresponsive in his home. During cross-examination, Wolfe revealed details that hadn't been made public. Security cameras mysteriously malfunctioning during the precise time frame when someone would have accessed Fritz's residence. Fritz's phone and laptop vanishing without explanation. And, most damning of all, encrypted communications from Harrison to an associate referencing permanent containment of the situation and expressing relief that the package has been neutralized. These revelations forced authorities to reconsider Wolfe's involvement. Was he perpetrator or reluctant participant who finally chose truth over self-preservation? The plea agreement suggested the latter. Wolfe accepted significant prison time in exchange for protection and cooperation, identifying others involved, beginning with Harrison. While Harrison has remained conspicuously silent, issuing only a brief statement through representatives denying involvement and offering conditional cooperation, digital forensic experts have begun unraveling what appears to be an elaborate network of communications between prominent television personalities. Communications that intensified dramatically in the days surrounding Fritz's death. When investigators executed a search warrant at Harrison's private storage facility, they discovered something unexpected. a climate-controlled vault containing artifacts that leading experts have since identified as historically significant items reported stolen from museums and archaeological sites across 17 countries. The collection's estimated value exceeded $87 million. More disturbing still were handwritten ledgers documenting transactions spanning nearly a decade. Transactions involving names recognized throughout the entertainment industry, politicians, and even law enforcement officials who might have been positioned to suppress investigations. This isn't simply about antiques, explained lead investigator Catherine Reeves during a press briefing. What we're potentially uncovering is a sophisticated operation using legitimate television productions as cover for international trafficking of cultural heritage items. Items systematically looted from conflict zones and sold to private collectors who knew exactly what they were purchasing. As digital forensics specialists continued analyzing communications, they discovered what might have triggered Fritz's fatal investigation. A series of photographs showing Harrison meeting with individuals identified as known facilitators of black market antiquities transactions in regions where legitimate acquisition would have been impossible. These images had been sent anonymously to Fritz approximately 2 weeks before his death, along with documentation suggesting that several items featured prominently on television had been obtained through illegal channels. Their provenance histories completely fabricated for broadcast. Frank couldn't ignore it, Wolfe testified, his voice breaking for the first time. Once he started pulling that thread, everything began unraveling. He told me, "Mike, if what I'm finding is accurate, it's not just Rick. It's dozens of people across multiple networks. This could bring down half the industry." 3 days after that conversation, Fritz received the first threatening message. Within a week, he was dead. Forensic analysis of Fritz's residence revealed microscopic evidence that his medication had been systematically replaced with substances known to trigger exactly the symptoms attributed to his death. A sophisticated approach that would have been undetectable without specialized testing, not typically performed during routine autopsies. This discovery led authorities to review similar deaths within the industry, seemingly natural passings that, when re-examined with new suspicion, revealed disturbing patterns suggesting Fritz might not have been the first person silenced for knowing too much. What initially appeared to be an isolated incident has expanded into a multi-jurisdictional investigation involving federal agencies and international cooperation. At its center remains the haunting question: how many others were silenced before Fritz became a liability too dangerous to ignore? The seemingly innocuous handshake between Wolfe and Harrison, captured by security cameras outside a storage facility in Las Vegas, has become the investigation's symbolic center. According to Wolfe's testimony, it wasn't casual acknowledgement, but coded confirmation that the situation had been handled, and warning that absolute silence remained the only acceptable path forward. "I didn't fully understand what I was agreeing to," Wolfe admitted, unable to meet the eyes of Fritz's family seated in the courtroom. "Or maybe I understood but convinced myself otherwise. Either way, that handshake sealed Frank's fate." Wolfe's cooperation has provided investigators unprecedented insight into what appears to be a shadow network, where television personalities cultivated carefully crafted public images while participating in systematically illegal acquisition practices. Practices that encountered occasional resistance from individuals whose principles couldn't be compromised. Fritz apparently represented exactly such resistance. His reputation for uncompromising authentication standards and meticulous documentation had made him increasingly problematic as operations expanded in scope and value. When Harrison allegedly approached Fritz about participating in an off-books venture focusing on artifacts from politically unstable regions, Fritz not only refused but began compiling evidence suggesting systematic criminal activity. "Frank knew the risks," Wolfe testified. "The last time we spoke privately, he looked me directly in the eyes and said, 'If something happens to me, Mike, don't accept whatever story they create. I've documented everything and hidden it where only someone who truly knew me would think to look.'" That conversation has taken on profound significance as investigators continue searching for Fritz's missing documentation. material believed to contain evidence that could expand the investigation exponentially. Most concerning is a specific leather-bound journal Fritz referenced repeatedly in communications with trusted associates. A journal containing what he described as insurance against the unthinkable that vanished immediately following his death. During subsequent weeks of intense investigation, authorities uncovered additional layers suggesting coordination, reaching far beyond isolated individuals. Wolfe provided access to communications from Harrison regarding permanent resolution of potentially compromising situations and financial transfers exceeding $400,000 to $50,000 to untraceable accounts activated specifically during the time frame surrounding Fritz's death. Most damning was partial audio capturing interaction between Harrison and Fritz, where Harrison delivered what investigators now classify as explicit threat. People who can't maintain appropriate discretion tend to experience unfortunate accidents. Your health conditions provide perfect cover for something that would never trigger questions. Consider carefully whether principles are worth dying for. Throughout court proceedings, Wolfe characterized the relationship between all involved parties as progressively deteriorating triangulation. Fritz possessing potentially devastating evidence, Harrison potentially coordinating elimination of liability, and Wolfe navigating increasingly impossible ethical terrain before ultimately choosing disclosure over continued complicity. As details reached public awareness, reaction intensified exponentially. Was Fritz's death genuinely medical or meticulously planned elimination targeting someone threatening exposure? Industry insiders have begun coming forward with accounts suggesting Fritz's situation potentially represents merely one visible instance within systematic suppression of individuals threatening established operations. Most disturbing are emerging connections between Fritz's death and previously unquestioned passing of other industry personalities. Individuals who similarly possessed reputations for ethical standards and who similarly died under circumstances attributed to pre-existing medical conditions or accidents perfectly aligned with their known risk factors. Investigation continues without definitive resolution, but certainty emerges regarding fundamental truth. What initially appeared isolated tragedy potentially represents calculated component within operational methodology specifically designed eliminating threats while maintaining plausible deniability. If Fritz's missing documentation eventually surfaces, what revelations might emerge regarding individuals currently considered beyond reproach? And considering potentially catastrophic consequences, would anyone accept responsibility ensuring such information reaches appropriate authorities? During execution of search warrants at 5 properties connected to individuals identified in Wolfe's testimony, investigators made an unexpected discovery. Sophisticated recording equipment matching technology used for covert surveillance throughout sensitive government operations. This equipment, not commercially available, could only have been obtained through connections within classified sectors, suggesting coordination potentially extending beyond entertainment industry. At exactly 2:14 a.m., hours before Fritz was discovered unresponsive, Wolfe received communication from completely untraceable source. The digitally altered voice delivered chilling message. Containment protocols activated. Interference guarantees identical outcome. Final warning. The following morning, despite numerous attempts contacting Fritz, Wolfe received no response. By early afternoon, emergency services discovered Fritz unresponsive at his residence. Despite immediate medical intervention, he died shortly thereafter with preliminary determination, citing cardiovascular failure consistent with documented medical history. During subsequent investigation, authorities encountered disturbing anomalies, systematically eliminating potential evidence. Security monitoring systems throughout Fritz's residential complex had been professionally neutralized through sophisticated cyber intrusion, occurring precisely 3:12 a.m., exactly 58 minutes following warning communication received by Wolfe. Technical specialists confirmed the intrusion utilized advanced methodology typically associated with state-level operations, not capabilities available to private citizens regardless of financial resources. Such precisely targeted information removal suggested not random criminal activity but rather coordinated operation, executed by individuals possessing both extensive technical expertise and powerful motivation ensuring complete evidence elimination. Fritz's personal communication devices, Equipment he reportedly maintained constant proximity with vanished without explanation. However, 5 days following his death, investigating authorities received an anonymous package containing printed communications between Fritz and an individual identified through initials matching Harrison's name. Fritz's final message, transmitted hours before his death, stated with unmistakable clarity, "I've secured everything. Whatever happens now, the truth eventually emerges. Some prices are worth paying." During authorized investigative discussions, Wolfe revealed Fritz had created comprehensive documentation regarding questionable acquisition practices, unrecorded financial transactions, and coordination between supposedly independent television personalities. This documentation, maintained within specialized case Fritz transported everywhere, disappeared completely following his death, suggesting someone possessing intimate knowledge regarding his security protocols had systematically removed potentially incriminating evidence. Perhaps most significant was recording Wolfe provided capturing Fritz stating, "I've identified systematic criminal enterprise operating behind legitimate programming. If confirmed, implications extend beyond Harrison, potentially compromising dozens of individuals across multiple networks." Unfortunately, this recording terminates abruptly following that statement. Technical analysis confirmed deliberate editing utilizing specialized equipment capable of seamlessly removing content without detection through conventional forensic examination. Media organizations maintained professional skepticism, pending additional verification. However, as details regarding sophisticated security breaches, missing evidence, and threatening communications spread through digital communities, public sentiment transformed dramatically. Millions demanded comprehensive reinvestigation into circumstances surrounding Fritz's death and potential connection to other industry figures who died under similar circumstances. Independent forensic specialists published analyses suggesting Fritz's passing potentially represented calculated elimination, utilizing methods specifically designed mimicking natural causes. Methods requiring both specialized knowledge regarding his specific medical vulnerabilities and access to substances capable of triggering precisely the symptoms documented during his final hours. Increasingly urgent questions demand answers. Who possessed capability disabling security systems, utilizing government-level intrusion methodologies? Who had access to Fritz's secured residence without triggering alarms? Who currently controls missing documentation containing evidence potentially devastating to powerful individuals across entertainment industry? While Harrison maintains absolute public silence, evidence continues emerging suggesting coordination potentially extending throughout multiple networks and production companies. Most concerning are indications that Fritz's elimination potentially represents established operational methodology rather than isolated incident, suggesting others who threatened exposing illegitimate practices may have experienced similar fate disguised as medical emergency or unfortunate accident. Though Fritz has passed, investigative processes continue with unprecedented intensity. Systematically erased security footage, sophisticated technical intrusions, and precisely targeted evidence elimination suggest coordination between individuals possessing both extensive resources and powerful motivation, ensuring absolute operational security. The most haunting question pervading the entire investigation remains fundamentally unresolved. Exactly how many individuals have been permanently silenced for threatening exposure of criminal enterprises operating behind carefully constructed entertainment programming? And more urgently, who controls the mechanisms determining who lives and who dies when financial interests face potential exposure? As investigators continue assembling evidence, one certainty emerges with disturbing clarity. The casual entertainment millions welcomed into their homes potentially conceals something infinitely darker than anyone imagined. The seemingly harmless programming, documenting historical artifact acquisition, potentially represents merely visible component within complex criminal enterprise, systematically eliminating anyone threatening its continued operation. The investigation continues expanding daily as new evidence emerges. If you believe truth deserves exposure regardless of consequences, support continued investigation by remaining engaged with developing evidence. Share your insights within appropriate forums and remain vigilant regarding information emerging from sources possessing financial interest, maintaining current operational structures. Because the ultimate truth regarding Fritz's death potentially affects not just historical understanding of entertainment programming, but fundamental safety of anyone daring challenge powerful interests operating beyond public awareness.